Welcome and thank you all for joining us for this special series of the Crexi Podcast, live from the NNN Pro Group's booth here on the floor of ICSC's ReCon 2023. This is ReConversations, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate with next level insights and expertise. This is powered by the NNN Pro Group, the market's leading net lease investment sales and advisory team. And today we are thrilled to sit down with Joe DosReis, SVP of Retail Development at GEMCAP Development. A little bit about our guest before we jump in. Joe has over 22 years of experience in the commercial real estate industry. You began your career as an account executive for an investment properties team at CBRE, where you served 12 years in various capacities, including investment properties, retail leasing, and global corporate service divisions. Following his time with CBRE, Joe made the transition to the occupier side of the business when he joined Krispy Kreme as a retail estate manager and led new store development efforts and existing store lease renegotiations for the brand. This was followed by his time as director of real estate at Bojangles, where he led a team of real estate professionals overseeing all franchise and corporate new store development, existing store lease optimization efforts. Joe earned a Bachelor's of Science in Social Science from California State University, Fresno, and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Pacific McGeorge School of Law. Joe is a proud military veteran where he served as a combat engineer for the U.S. Army. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
How's the show been for you so far?
It's been exhausting. It's the last day, and as you could probably hear from my voice, it's taken a beating over the last few days, but it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, if you go home with a voice, did you really show up to
I don't think you
ReCon?
accomplished much.
Right. Well, let's just first jump into a little bit about your background. Tell me where you're from and how you got into commercial real estate.
So I actually fell into commercial real estate after I graduated law school. The investment team at CBRE that was hiring was actually looking for attorneys. And so that caught my eye. I've always thought real estate would be good to get into. And so rather than pursuing the legal career, I chose real estate. And the rest is history.
And was there a reason why you got into your specific focus? What kind of led you down that path?
Again, it was just kind of how the water flowed. So the team at CBRE was an investment sales team. So that's how I got into investment sales. From there, being exposed to how projects were financed and led me to the occupier side eventually, where I could use that knowledge to understand what developers are looking at, what buyers are looking at, to structure our leases to actually make them more palatable to eventual buyers.
And did you have any mentors that you kind of learned from along the way?
I have several, but one I'd want to call out would be Jose Costa, and he is the CEO at Magnolia Car Wash, and he was the chief development officer at Bojangles while I was there, and he is a wonderful person and a great leader, and had a lasting impact on me personally and professionally.
What were some lessons that you learned early along the way that kind of helped shape your career path?
No deal is worth dying for, and I don't mean that in a literal sense, obviously, but I watching especially younger brokers and developers, every deal is life or death, and it's really not, but they act as though it is. And I've found if you step back and relax a little bit, understanding that a lot of time and money is on the line, if you step back and take it as if this goes away, there'll be another one, you tend to be more successful in the one you're trying to save. When you try to grab on tight and clench fist, the opportunity usually goes away. You choke it to death. You're trying to hold on too tight. And so just relax.
Were there any favorite mistakes that you kind of made along the way that helped, shape you, or you didn't recognize it as opportunities at the time?
Nothing jumps to mind. A big mistake that was a good learning lesson. Maybe we could circle back on that. Let me think about that.
Yeah. And then, we're going to jump into kind of the reason everyone's here, which is, retail. In respect to your experience, what are some of the biggest trends that you're seeing in the commercial real estate market today?
Oh, gosh, we're in a topsy-turvy market right now. And for better or worse, I think in our position, because of our unique capital stack, it's for the better. But I'm seeing a lot of 2008 feelings and trends, and that's concerning because financing is drying up, the capital markets are creaking to a halt, and that's really where the rubber meets the road. If the credit becomes unavailable for a lot of people, they can't do business, and that'll be problematic. And so, again, for us, how we fund our projects with lines of credit and internal financing, we're not relying on individual project debt. So if the capital markets dry up, we're in a great position. So that in a way, we're kind of hoping it corrects, and even corrects more than a correction. We don't want to see '08 again, but looks like it's heading that way.
Sounds like if you've learned from the previous lessons, then you're probably in a pretty good position right now.
I was on the side. Yeah, I was on the broker side at the time in 2008. So, there's one lesson, right? Be more, to pay more attention to the market, and not just, you tend to get focused in real estate and you don't focus on things outside of real estate, but are related. So your financing, as an investment broker, that was important, but it wasn't the main priority. The main priority was selling your properties. Not realizing that without capital or access to capital, buyers couldn't buy your properties. So it impacted you. And so that was the lesson, is see the trend and prepare for the trend. And, not to use the cliche, but, keep your powder dry. Have the people that made a lot of money after '08 were the people that saw it coming, or at least reacted quickly when it did happen, and started surplusing cash so they could then go in and buy properties for a fraction of what they were just 6 months before.
What do you think the implications of these current trends are for investors now?
For investors now, it's a good time to be an investor right now because prices are going down, cap rates are going up. And so, last check I saw there were 150 Starbucks on the market right now. So as an investor, you have your pick of the litter. You don't have to buy the 4.5 cap deal anymore. So you can sit back and look and wait and see, make sure the credit's good, make sure the location's good, and you're going to get a relatively good price. Even paying a 5.5 cap for these deals, several years ago, these were trading 7.
Right.
So it's better than it was, not as good as 2009, 2010, but maybe 2025 will be 2010 all over again.
Right. What do you think some of the biggest challenges facing the commercial real estate market are today? I mean, I know the interest rates are
It's only a 20-minute podcast.
Yeah.
That might take a long time to answer. The interest rate's the obvious one, but that's low-hanging fruit. I say the things that often go overlooked is, and it's related to interest. They're all intertwined, right? So
yeah.
The problem with tenants understanding that costs have gone up for every construction material imaginable. And so to build a building, if it cost you $2 million 2 years ago, it's $2.8 million now. And the tenants have been slow to make that adjustment. So they're used to paying rent in a certain range, and that rent doesn't exist anymore. It's going to be higher. And so they can't get it through investment committees, and they can't get it past real estate committee. It doesn't pencil anymore for them. So that's a big challenge. The supply chain still a challenge. We can't get material. Freezers and walk-in coolers that used to have a 24-week lead time, they're almost 54, 55 weeks now. So tenants and developers in a build-to-suit scenario have to order these things much, much earlier and be prepared for that. Otherwise, when you get to your typical installation time in your construction cycle, you're sitting there waiting for a walk-in cooler, and you're going to wait another 3 months, and you're basically ground to a halt. And so if you don't anticipate these things ahead of time, it can drag out your build time, and tenants aren't happy with that. They're paying more for the building, and it's taking longer to get it.
Right.
So nobody's happy with that scenario. So it's really being able to anticipate these bumps in the road that we know are there, and they change, but if you're in tune to the market and you're in tune to what's happening, you can anticipate them.
Speaking of being in tune with the market, where do you think you see some of the biggest opportunities, in the light of how the market is shifting right now?
There's going to be, we don't really delve into the office market, but that's probably going to be some of the biggest opportunities. The office is struggling. The return to work never really materialized. Some of the big tenants threatened to return to work, and they even capitulated and did a hybrid model, right? So they're releasing a lot of office space. There's a lot of dark office space. I was in California during the .com boom and bust in the early 2000s, and most people outside of California and maybe Denver, I think, was impacted pretty heavily because of the tech concentration. They didn't even know that happened, but it happened where you had a lot, millions of square feet of dark office space. And back then, I always joke the Aeron chairs were the cool thing for all the tech companies. And there were warehouses with millions of Aeron chairs, and you could buy them. There were, I think at the time, it was like $800 a chair, and you could buy them for like $50 a chair, but you had to buy 2,000 of them. So you had to buy them in bulk. There were so many of them because of all the office space. So I think office is going to be a big opportunity. What do you do with it? You'd have to repurpose it, maybe some multifamily conversion. I think there's some opportunity there. I don't know that it'll ever be re-tenanted. I think you'll see tenants have the opportunity, a flight to quality, right? They can get out of their C space, get into A space for the same price, or maybe even less. So opportunity for tenants and investors and developers in the office sector. For retail, I think you'll see a kind of a cleaning out of, there's been a lot of developers that have become developers in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of brokers that have cut their teeth in the last few years. And, unfortunately, I think hard times are going to weed a lot of the dead wood off. And so there's opportunity there. You'll have less people playing in the pool. And so you can pick up some deals. Of course, I think tenants will start to fail. Franchisees with, limited operating experience and only a few stores, they're going to struggle the worst, and they're least likely or least able to absorb the increased costs that we're seeing now. And so I think you'll see a lot of dark QSRs mainly, where the franchise operators just couldn't continue to operate.
Right. What are your thoughts about technology, specifically in commercial real estate, the value and rising accessibility of data, the looming, I don't know if it's a threat, but, AI is starting to kind of pervade every conversation around really every industry. What are your thoughts around tech right now?
I love technology, and it makes our job a lot easier. I've read books on kind of old school site selection and some of the anecdotes where they're trying to count traffic, and they did it by sitting in a car with a stopwatch and physically counting traffic. And I couldn't imagine doing that. And so I've been lucky that the technology has been around where I can pull a report. So I enjoy it. The one big caveat that I would put around all technology is there's so much of it, and it's so available and it's pervasive that if you can't aggregate it and move it and use it or convert it to a usable format to where you can easily extrapolate the information that you need, it's just a bunch of numbers that nobody really knows how to apply, or they apply it incorrectly because they're looking at the wrong thing because there's so much. It's almost white noise. And so it's really being focused on your technology, what you want out of it, and getting the right technological tool to get the product that you want.
I got a couple of rapid fire questions for you before we finish up. If you're given $50 million today and had to spend it right away, what would you buy and where and why?
So my obvious answer, I know you said I had to spend it right away, would be not to spend it. It would be to hold it and wait, because I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Let's say it's 6 months from now.
6 months, have to spend it. I think you're going to start to see, like I said, the QSR, there's going to be a lot of shakeout there. There's a lot of older QSR buildings that need remodels.
Yep.
Tenants don't have the money, so they're gonna get out of them. So I think there's a lot of bank opportunities that are going to become available. So I would start generally probably in the CBD, and pushing out more to the suburbs, but focusing on the CBD because as the offices
For our listeners that don't know, CBD.
Central Business District, traditionally where all the offices are.
Yeah.
Without the people in the office, they're not buying lunch. They're not going shopping on their lunch break. And so the ancillary retailers around the CBD, they're starting to feel that pinch too. And
Right.
so I think that's where you'll start to see some opportunities. So I'd start looking for vulture deals in that area.
Favorite tool or software you use on the job?
Favorite tool or software I use on the job? I actually, and you guys did not pay me to say this, I actually enjoy Crexi quite a bit. Our company is in the process of converting to use Crexi. We're not yet. We're partially using it, but converting to use it. It takes all the best things of competitors and gets rid of all the worst things from the competitors. So it really is a tool. We use it daily. Everybody on our teams use it day in and day out. So that would probably be the top one we use the most.
I'm really happy to hear that it's working out. And then what's the most common misconception about your job or industry?
Oh, gosh. I would say there's so many. I would say the common is that all developers are real estate tycoons.
Yeah.
They come in like in anything. They come in all shapes and sizes. And some are big shops, and some are small shops, and some struggle to make it day by day, and some are very successful. So, the public, they hear the term developer and they immediately think Donald Trump.
Right.
And not every developer is Donald Trump. There'd be a problem if they were. Right? A lot more developers would be trying to get in the business.
Life would be a little more entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for. Before we go, is there anything as we wrap up, any parting words you want to share with our audience?
No, I would say if you're looking for a single net leased retail developer, GEMCAP, we develop nationwide, and we would love the opportunity to work. We focus only on retail and usually single tenant or small strip centers. That's our niche focus. And like I said, we don't rely on individual project financing. So we have capital available, no need for appraisals, loan to value concerns, anything like that. So we're always looking for deals across the country. We focus nationwide. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight and expertise. If people want to find you, how can they reach you? Email, website?
Email is Joe at GEMCAPdevelopment.com, and that's GEMCAP development.com. And our website is GEMCAPdevelopment.com, and they can reach me that way.
Well, thank you again, and thanks to everyone who tuned in for this episode of ReConversations, coming to you live from the floor of ICSC's ReCon 2023 at the NNN Pro Group's booth. As I mentioned earlier, the NNN Pro Group is, our friends here have hosted us, and they are the market's leading net lease investment sales and advisory group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe through your podcast app. You can, of course, go to go.crexi.com/podcast to find more episodes. You can also see videos of this podcast on our YouTube channel. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.